see Dan with us right there. And we are going to dive in directly into octane and race gas. Dan was with us earlier this year, did a terrific seminar on educating people about octane and race gas, and we invited him back on the Race Industry Week. So Dan, thank you very much for being with us. And we'll let you carry on.
Absolutely, thank you. So can everybody hear me well? Is volume good and everything?
Go ahead, and you might want to turn it up just a little bit. It sounds like a little bit off.
Let me try this.
Test now. You okay? You got me?
Can you hear me now?
You're still kind of muffled.
Okay. How about now?
That's better.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
yeah, definitely
okay,
clear.
Okay, I just got to lean over a little bit is all. So again, you know, Francis and everybody at EPARTRADE, thank you so much for having my company on. You know, we've really been blessed to work with Francis early on and with EPARTRADE early on, and it's benefited our business in many different ways, including some ways we didn't expect, like international distribution. So we're really thankful to be part of the team, and was very grateful when they asked me to speak today. For those of you, sorry?
No, I was just going to say, you know, it's great to hear that the platform is working for you and that you're able to expand your business. I mean, that's exactly what everybody wants to hear here at EPARTRADE, that the platform is working for you, because that excites everybody and makes us really, you know, feel like that we're accomplishing what our goal is to get everybody, no matter where you're, you know, a small operation or whether you're a mega group. We want to make sure that you get, you know, new customers and have new opportunities. So it's just, it's exciting to hear that.
Well, thank you. So I was asked today to speak a little bit about octane. For those of you who don't know my company, I'm the CEO of Motorsports Fuel and Equipment. We manufacture, among other things, a series of race fuel concentrates that are specifically designed to recreate racing fuel out of pump gas. We'll get into that more in a little bit. But what I wanted to talk to today is we get, you know, 20, 30 calls a week from end users, tuners, engine builders. And what we're seeing is there's a number of questions that were asked over and over and again that we would assume everybody knows, but apparently there's some mystery surrounding it. So what I did today was put together some of our top FAQs and how we answer them. And hopefully that will answer some of the audience questions and maybe spark some questions from that. So the first question, sorry?
No, I said, sounds good.
So I'm not, I want to level set everybody about what the word octane means. And it's, I know you guys are race professionals, you know what it means, but I want to just make sure we have a common definition. We define octane rating as the fuel's ability to resist detonation in the compression stroke and actually be ignited by the spark plug as opposed to the piston moving up. Does that make sense?
Definitely.
Okay. So the reason why I wanted to bring this up is because even the definition of the word, we see some confusion about. And I just wanted to make sure that we're all speaking sort of the same language. So one of the questions we frequently get asked is, what is a point of octane? And this one is—
Hey, Daniel,
yes.
I don't want to interrupt you, but I think I need to interrupt you to help you out here, partner. Our panelists and everybody, our attendees, you got your camera. I know you're trying to get the microphone. If you could turn it a little bit so we can see you, it would be very helpful.
Can you see my screen? Can you see my screen now? So hopefully you can see my screen. One of the questions we get asked quite frequently is, what is a point of octane? And, you know, it seems like some of the booster manufacturers and some of the fuel manufacturers have sort of left this as sort of a mystery. So many times we get calls from somebody saying, well, I bought this product or that product, and it says it raised, you know, 5 points of octane, and I still blew my motor. Well, the reason for that is a point of octane is 1/10 of a number. So when you're discussing racing fuel, you're not talking about points of octane, you're talking about full octane numbers.
Right. Does to me.
You know, so again, a lot of these products that you buy off the shelf at the parts store, hey, raises 5 points. You think you're getting 95 out of 91, you're not. You're getting 91.5 out of 91.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the first thing, you know, that we generally tend to clear up. The other one we get asked a lot is, there's various octane numbers. And it's our customers are always trying to understand what is the right octane number for them to look at when they start to, you know, put gasoline into their performance engine.
Right.
So there's 3 common used ones here in the United States. The first one is the research octane number. And the way racing fuel is tested, or any fuel is tested, is put on what they call a CFR engine, which is a single cylinder test engine that you can vary the compression of. And the research octane number is the performance of the fuel in that engine at idle. So it's barely moving. The next one that you'll hear a lot about is the motor octane number, which in my opinion is a lot more important than the other 2. The motor octane number is the performance of the fuel under load. And I don't know about you guys, but I've been racing for 30 years and I've never won a race at idle. So, you know, it's probably pretty important. The other one that we use in the United States is sort of a standard for commercial fuels is the anti-knock index, or AKI. And that's literally just the motor octane number divided by, plus the research octane number divided by 2. So it's an average of those 2 scores. So, you know, one of the things we tell our customers is when you are picking a fuel product for your car, make sure that you are getting the octane number that you actually need. And I always say, if you have to err on the side of safety, always look for the higher motor octane number.
Okay.
You know, that's just sort of a safety net, if you will. So this is something that we get a lot of confusion on. There's a lot of companies in the market that produce products and they don't say what octane number they reach. And the reality of it is they're reaching the research octane number because it's the easiest one to get. But does that mean it's the best one for your car? No, it's not. So we routinely will get somebody, and even engine builders and people that are very experienced will call up and say, you know, my car needs 121 octane. And of course, my first question is why? And they'll start going through the build of the motor, and you know, there's some rules of thumb you can apply to kind of figure out where he should be, where that person should be. And you know, there's this sort of prevailing attitude that more octane is better. And the reality of it is your engine performs best at the edge of detonation.
Right.
So you don't want too much or too little. When we tested our product, we always tested against commercial racing fuel. And we also, when we did our tests, we would over octane the engine to see where the performance would fall off. And it does fall off. So, and you know, in many instances, if you have a well-tuned motor, you know, 1 or 2 numbers of octane will degrade the performance more than that could actually damage the engine. So it's not more is better, it's just enough is perfect. So that's something engine builders even ask us about today. The other question we get asked a lot is, what does my engine need? What octane does my engine need? And the reality of it is there's no calculation or formula or, calculator that will tell you, if your engine's this, it needs this octane. There's just not, there's too many variables to consider, everything from, the cam design to whether it's aluminum or steel heads, the block, pistons, the combustion chamber volume. There's all sorts of things that affect it. And, really, if you go to a reputable engine builder or a tuner, they have some experience in where to start. So, if you show up to, like one of our customers, TSAR Engineering, and you've got a Ford 302 that's running 13.5-to-1 compression and 38 degrees of timing, they have a starting number that they can begin with and start to use to estimate, what it would be. But the reality of it is the option of that particular engine needs to be figured out on an engine bank. So yes, you can use some rules of thumb to get you to the approximate octane, but then you want to tune to that octane on the engine. Now, what does that mean? For a fuel injected engine, you guys all know what that means. You get a computer, you've got a chip or whatever it happens to be, and you go in and you tune the engine based on that octane. For older engines that are carbureted, it's about jet size and about timing. And, you can play with jet sizes, primaries and secondaries. You can adjust timing and see where the sweet spot is for that engine. So there's really, to say that there's like a calculation that you can enter into to find out what your engine needs, it just doesn't exist. I'll pause there if there's any questions.
What I'm looking at, and I'm glad you brought up, because I was really curious how much difference there would be between fuel injection and understanding how that ECU kind of helps protect the engine from, not having the proper knowledge. It will kind of like protect itself.
Modern fuel injection is amazing. It really is. And, one of the things we get asked all the time is, well, I have a stock car. Will raising my octane increase the performance? And the answer is it might. If you think about performance engines and you think about manufacturers, and let's use the current stable of muscle cars that are currently very popular here in the United States. You've got, from offerings from Dodge and Ford and everybody else, Corvette. They have to make one ECU for the world. And as we all know, fuel quality in certain countries or certain places, even in the United States, is not as high a quality as other places. Mm-hmm. So by building the sensitivity into the fuel maps, when the ECU detects that it's not getting enough octane to run correctly, it will start to retard timing in order to protect the engine. And if it's really bad, it'll just go with it. So
yep.
There's some protection built in there. We did some tests to understand how these engines behave with slightly higher octane. One of the tests we did was the Subaru WRX STI bone stock. We did a bunch of pulls with 93 octane, drain the rail, drain the tank. We used our product and we took it up to 98 octane. And we got 22 horsepower at the wheels. Nothing to sneeze at, considering that's a stock car. But I say that with a hint of caution, in that your Camry or your wife's minivan is not going to suddenly be a race car. So you have to be kind of selective in what kind of car it is. But like the new Corvette, especially, what an amazing car. And, you know, a little bump in octane gives you a pretty big bump in performance. That said, it's limited. You don't want to use too much. A little, you know, if you're set up to run 93 and you've got a Corvette and you run 95 or 96, you'll probably get more power. If you run 100, you're probably going to get less power and less performance.
Right.
So that, you know, that's something that all of that magic becomes, you know, through the modern ECU, and it makes tuning your car, you know, infinitely, well, it's more complicated, but it's more accessible for most people if you have an engine tuner that knows how to do it. You can set your car up for not a lot of money to generate more power. My personal experience, I have a Volkswagen R32 and I have 101 octane fuel map on it. And it creates a hell of a lot more power on that fuel map with 101 octane fuel than it does with 93. So I practice what I preach, I should say.
Yeah, I hear you. But when you talk about that, Daniel, and you have an unfair advantage because you know the proper way and steps to take to get the right result.
Right.
And I think, you know, one of the biggest challenges is you can't walk into it, and I'm not picking on a parts store, auto parts store.
Sure.
You can't walk into an auto parts store and expect to get, in my opinion, the right kind of answer that you're looking for. They're in the business to sell product and any kind of quote unquote snake oil that's out there that they believe maybe you will bite on. And they have no experience. You know, they either read it or somebody, a salesman told them this right here will work in anything and they'll notice an instant result. Correct?
Yeah, I mean, that's somewhat true. So what I can tell you is that our products are sold through some second tier chains and third tier chains. And I know that in one retailer in particular, that's a national retailer, if you go into their speed shops, which are special shops that they have set up, that staff knows how to talk about what we're discussing here.
Good.
So
that's where I'm trying to get to. There's not a lot of Daniel Muldowney's out there that have probably the experience and gone through the process like you have. And I'm glad to hear that there's somebody or that there are people that are educated about it.
Yeah, and you know, the other thing too is any speed shop, and you know, yes, there's good ones and bad ones, but
yeah,
most speed shops can get you in the right direction, and with fuel injected engine pretty cheaply. Carburetors are a little bit more complex, but you know, any reputable tuner is going to be able to help you dial all this in. So, you know, yes, we are sold in some retail chains, but 600 of our retailers in the United States are independent speed shops. And those are the people we recommend to talk to when you want to discuss these types of things.
There you go. I like it.
So I want to take a brief minute, just because I've been given the platform and I can, to tell you a little bit about what my company does, and specifically what race gas race fuel concentrate is and how it came about. I promise to keep it short. I've got some technical stuff to show after this. It's way more interesting.
All right.
So just to give you the quick down and dirty story of race gas, I started this company 10 years ago, 11 years ago. And at the time, I was just trying to solve my own problem. I had gone to a track, I bought 110 octane racing fuel, didn't know it'd been sitting all winter, and I hold 3 pistons. Same thing happened 18 months later. And I'm like, if I don't solve this problem for myself, I can't race. Through discussions with various people that I met online, I met some, you know, former Sunoco engineers, I met some former VP engineers online, and they all gave me some places to look. But really the cash cow was a former Sunoco engineer turned me on to the declassified Army Air Corps research that was done between 1938 and 1955 with the Chicago Oil Company, the US Army Air Corps, and the British Army Air Corps. And back then, 100 octane was it. Well, you got a P-51 Mustang, it needs 120 octane. They had to figure this out. And they spent, in today's equivalent dollars, of about $750 million researching the constituent components of gasoline to find which chemicals had the right mix of properties to create the fuel that they could use in these aircraft. And I spent the better part of a year reading this material. And during that time, I ran into a formulary lab in Michigan, and I started making my own blend candidates and sending it to them, and they would test it. And, hey, it burns too smoky, or it burns too fast, or it burns too slow, or, whatever happens to be. And we did this sort of iterative process back and forth for the better part of a year. When we finally got to a blend candidate that we thought was the right one, we went down the same path that commercial fuel companies go through to certify their gasolines. So we got a lab
The concept for EPARTRADE is basically, in my opinion, there's a big hole in the internet. So the internet started many years ago, but there's never been an online business community for racers on the World Wide Web. The need for EPARTRADE is actually quite obvious. Basically, people in the business of auto racing need a place online to hang out and get their problems solved.
It's extremely simple for a buyer or for a supplier to interact on the platform. The first thing you need to do is sign in, which is free. And the second thing is, when you see a product that you're interested in, all you need to do is click on request more information. If it's a company, you click on request more information, and then from there, it is forwarded directly to the buyer or to the supplier.
You can go to epartrade.com, you become part of a community of businesses in racing, and it makes sourcing products much easier than just on the internet or using Google.
At EPARTRADE, there is no e-commerce. It's literally a connection just like at a trade show. So now, any time of the year, a buyer could reach out to a supplier through an email.
More than that, it's a place to go just to keep current every day. So it's a good place to start your workday in your racing business or in your offices of your professional race team. And you know you're current when it comes to new technology, industry news, technical papers, technical videos, all of that and more. We're not looking for a million hits per day. All we want is people who are really the volume buyers of racing products in the racing industry to be part of the little world of EPARTRADE. We have racing businesses participating from around the world. So you get suppliers from around the world, you get buyers from around the world.
EPARTRADE really eliminates having to travel, closing down your shop. Now you have a place to showcase globally your racing product and technology.
There are two types of people, racers and everyone else. Racer Magazine is for those who believe that racing is a way of life. Racer embodies the excellence that defines a sport driven by passion, courage, and ingenuity. Get 1 year of both Racer's print and digital edition for only $39 with instant access to our entire digital issue archive. Subscribe now at info.racer.com.